there is a very real chance that you should not exist. 200,000. That's how many abortions happen every single day, which means that everyone watching this video is alive because someone made what is now the less popular choice. Here is where it gets alarming. More than 70 million people died in World War II over 6 years, but 73 million abortions happen every single year. Year after year after year. In the time it takes you to watch this video, roughly 3,000 lives will be ended before they begin. More than heart disease, more than cancer, more than every infectious disease on Earth. And no one talks about it. And before you assume you are on the morally correct side of this, let me warn you. By the end of this video, I'm going to prove that almost everyone is a hypocrite about abortion. Whether you're religious and believe life is given by God, whether you're a liberal who believes in equal rights, whether you're a vegan who says every life is precious, or even if you think you're outside all those groups, I'll prove you're a hypocrite too. Before we get into it, this video is not a political rant. I'm not here to tell you to vote for anyone. I'm here to follow a single principle to its logical conclusion and show you that almost nobody is consistent about it. That principle is simple. Causing serious harm to another living being, especially killing, is wrong unless there is an extraordinary justification. That's it. If you agree with that, stay with me, because where this goes might surprise you. And one note before we continue. Abortion in cases of rape or extreme medical emergency make up less than 2% of all abortions. According to official state reporting data in the United States, about 98% of abortions are elective, meaning they are performed for socio-economic or personal reasons, not perceived medical necessity. We're talking particularly about the 98%. Abortion isn't new. The deliberate termination of pregnancy has been practiced since ancient times. Herbs, instruments, beating on the womb. It's been legal, illegal, and everything in between, depending on the era and the empire. In 1920, the Soviet Union under Lenin became the first modern state to legalize elective abortion. Starting from around 1980, China instituted enforced abortion under the one-child policy. Earlier than that in the West, the sexual revolution of the 1960s turned abortion into a central issue of women's liberation. It's my body and I am free to do what I like with it. Having an abortion is my choice, which no one else should interfere with. Here is what most people don't realize. In the United States, a 1973 Supreme Court ruling called Roe versus Wade made abortion a constitutional right for nearly 50 years. It was hugely controversial, and eventually in 2022, the Supreme Court overturned it. Supposedly a great victory for the pro-life movement. But the number of abortions didn't go down, it went up. Thanks to telehealth prescriptions, abortion pills shipped across state lines, and an entire underground network, more abortions happened after the ban than before it. Laws alone do not change hearts. And that tells us something profound about where the real problem lies. We'll come back to that. But first, is abortion right or wrong? And more importantly, are the people arguing about it even being consistent? Let's start with science and philosophy. It's generally uncontroversial in biology that a genetically unique human life begins at conception. That's when the father's and mother's DNA combine to form a new organism with its own genetic code, distinct from either parent. That's not religious, that's biology. Now the question is, when does that life develop enough moral weight that it deserves protection? Some say, when the brain develops enough for consciousness. But here's the problem with that standard. The philosopher Don Marquis made perhaps the most powerful secular argument against abortion. He asked a simple question. Why is killing wrong in the first place? His answer, because when you kill someone, you just don't end their present. You rob them of their entire future. Every experience, every relationship, every moment of joy or growth they would have had, gone. He called this a future like ours, and a fetus has one. Think about it. A person in a coma, no consciousness, no awareness. But if they have a reasonable chance of waking up, most people would agree that pulling the plug is wrong. Why? Because they have a future. They're not experiencing anything right now, but good chance they will. Or take something even more ordinary, very ordinary, a person who's asleep. They're not overtly conscious or experiencing anything, but killing a sleeping person is self-evidently monstrous. Why? Not because what they are experiencing now, but because of what they will experience when they wake. A fetus is in the same position. No consciousness, or very limited, but a future full of it. And, by the way, past around 20 weeks, the fetus develops brain structures linked to pain. So abortions after that point risk causing immense suffering to the child. But even before that point, the argument holds. You are depriving a human being of their future. Every single person watching this video was once a fetus. Every one of you, your mother could have made a different choice. And everything you have ever experienced, every single moment of your life, would have been erased. Now let's add God to the picture. If you believe in God, the case against abortion becomes even more clear-cut. God desires the welfare of every one of his creations. A developing child in the womb is his creation. Abortion acts directly against that child's welfare and therefore is against the desire of God. This is the most basic reason that God-fearing people throughout history have held that life deserves protection from the moment of conception. And then there's the principle of God's sovereignty. Theism, real theism, means accepting God as the ultimate authority. So, if God has sanctioned the creation of a life, even if the parents didn't intend it, they have no authority to destroy it. That life is not theirs, it's God's. Abortion is a direct affront to God's sovereignty over life. You are hijacking the role of God, deciding who gets to be born and who doesn't. The God of every major theistic tradition, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, is understood to desire the welfare of his creations. Abortion acts against that welfare. The logic is the same across all of them. Here's where it gets uncomfortable for religious people. Both the Catholic and Orthodox churches officially condemn abortion as gravely immoral, sinful. But according to Pew Research, 59 to 60% of US Catholics believe abortion should be legal in most cases. Only about 34% of weekly mass goers say it should be legal, but among those who attend less frequently, that figure jumps to 68%. The PRRI's 2024 American Values Atlas, which surveyed more than 22,000 adults, paints an even fuller picture. Majorities across nearly every religious tradition in America support legal abortion. 71% of Black Protestants, 69% of mainline Protestants, 66% of Muslims, and 84% of self-identified Buddhists. The data shows that across nearly every faith, people's views on abortion correlate more closely with their political affiliation than with the teachings of their own religion. Let that sink in. People who claim to follow God are taking their moral cues from politicians, not from Scripture. That's not faith. That's tribalism wearing a cross. Now let's deal with the two biggest arguments in favor of abortion, starting with bodily autonomy. The argument goes, my body, my choice. No one should force a woman to go through pregnancy if she doesn't want to. But here's the thing, no one actually believes in unlimited bodily autonomy. Legally, you can't use your body to kill another person. You can't use it to take certain drugs. These are restrictions we all accept because they prevent harm. Abortion is not about the woman's body. It's about the harm done to the child inside her body. The child has their own DNA, their own heartbeat, their own developing brain. The child's body is a separate human organism. That makes it a question of protecting an innocent life, not a question of personal freedom. And we expect people to endure difficulty to avoid doing immoral things all the time. It would be much easier to abandon your children than care for them, but nobody calls that bodily autonomy. We call it responsibility. If you chose to engage in the activity that creates life, you have a responsibility to that life. If you don't want the risk, don't take the risk. And let's not ignore the fact that abortion is often harmful to the woman herself. Multiple peer-reviewed studies have found significantly elevated rates of depression, guilt, regret, nightmares, anxiety, and even suicide attempts among women who have had abortions. A meta-analysis in the British Journal of Psychiatry found an 81% higher risk of mental health problems. A 2025 Canadian study of over 1 million women found more than double the risk of hospitalization for a suicide attempt. Even studies cited by abortion advocates have found that the majority of women report guilt, sadness, or regret. They just don't frame it that way in their headlines. Also, in every first world country, resources exist to help mothers in need. The USA alone has more than 3,000 pregnancy centers. The EU has government programs. Help is available. The narrative that women have no choice is not true. The second argument: it's better not to bring a child into the world if they're going to suffer. Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood, said she believed the greatest sin was bringing children into the world who have no chance to be a human being practically. But are people really marked at birth? Experience says no. People born into terrible circumstances change, grow, overcome. Here's one you might already know: Cristiano Ronaldo. 5 Ballons d'Or. First ever billionaire soccer player, born into poverty on the Portuguese island of Madeira. He was the 4th child in a family that was already struggling, to a mother who, by her own account, tried everything to end the pregnancy. In her own memoir, and again in the documentary about Ronaldo, his mother, Dolores Overo, frankly said, "I wanted to abort him, but a doctor refused to do it. So she tried to end it herself." She described drinking warm beer and running until she dropped, trying to force a miscarriage that didn't work. That is a real woman's real memory, published in her own words, and the child she couldn't get rid of, no matter how hard she tried, grew up to become the one supporting her. And now she calls it the greatest blessing of her life. Of course, not every child will turn into a global icon, but even if they don't, it's not our place to decide for another person whether their life is worth living. And almost no child in a difficult situation, if you ask them, would choose to die. And here's what the data says. The Turnaway study, led by researchers at the University of California, San Francisco, tracked around 1,000 women who sought abortions. Some received them, some were turned away. The findings: by the 5th year, 96% of women who were denied an abortion were glad they had their child. Now, the study has been critiqued for methodological limitations, high attrition rates, potential selection bias, and those critiques are fair. But even critical analyses of the data confirm the central finding: the overwhelming majority of women who are initially denied an abortion and carry to term do not regret having the child. And the study found the key factor wasn't money or race, it was social support, family, community. The solution to unwanted pregnancy isn't killing the child. It's building a culture where children are wanted, where fathers stay, where families and communities rally around a new life. Now, here's what no one wants to hear. Abortion is a symptom. The actual disease is the modern culture of sexuality. The birth control pill gave people the liberty to have sex whenever they want, with whoever they want, without the risk of pregnancy. And so they do. And now sex is seen as an entitlement, something you're abnormal for not doing. A recreational activity, not the process for creating life. But nature doesn't care about your intentions. When you have sex, pregnancy is a possible outcome. Everyone knows that. That's why they use contraception. Pregnancy only becomes a problem when parents are unwilling to take responsibility. And most sexual relationships today are exactly that, based on lust, not commitment, on mutual exploitation, not cooperation. So when a child starts forming, the response is, get rid of it. The solution isn't more abortions. It's changing how we think about sex. If sex is for creating life, and marriage is the structure for raising that life, then pregnancy is never unwanted. A child is never a burden. If you're not ready for a child, don't do the thing that makes one. It's that simple. And if we're going to talk about changing the perception of sex, we have to talk about contraception. People see contraception like the polio vaccine. We had a problem, now we have a solution. How could anyone oppose it? But contraception isn't just a medical tool. It's an artificial disruption of the natural process of reproduction. Wearing a condom isn't the same as killing a child, but it's built on the same assumption. Sex is for pleasure, the creation of life is an inconvenient side effect. For anyone who believes God designed the world to function a certain way, disrupting that function is a problem. That's why historically, Christianity, Catholic, Orthodox, has opposed contraception. And yet, 98% of Catholic women have used contraception. 74% of evangelicals rely on sterilization and other highly effective methods, allowing them to have as much sex as they like while preventing pregnancy. Like abortion, this is a massive hypocrisy happening in the name of God. But religious people aren't the only hypocrites. Let's go through the list. Liberals. Liberalism is built on individual liberty, equality, and protection of rights, especially for the most vulnerable. But somehow, the most vulnerable human being imaginable, a child in the womb who can't speak, can't defend themselves, has no voice, gets excluded. Would a liberal support aborting a child because it has Down syndrome? In Iceland, nearly 100% of pregnancies with Down syndrome diagnosis are terminated. In Denmark, 98%. In the UK, 90%. In Germany, despite its history with eugenics, over 90%. And what about sex-selective abortion? Aborting a child because it's female. That continues in some Asian countries today. But what exactly is the moral difference? In both cases, the mother is ending a life for personal reasons rather than considering the right of the child to exist. If you believe disabled people have the right to live, and you do, how can you simultaneously believe an unborn disabled child does not? Self-described Buddhists. There is no school of Buddhism that endorses abortion. None. Ahimsa paramo dharma. Non-violence is the highest duty. 84% of American Buddhists support legal abortion. People who put Buddha quotes on their Instagram bios are okay with killing unborn children. Vegans. This is perhaps the most mind-boggling one. Vegans don't eat honey because violence to bees, but they'll support the killing of a human child in the womb. How does that make any sense? Now, if you've been nodding along with this the whole time, agreeing with everything, here's where I turn the mirror on you, presuming you're unmuted. The vast majority of people who oppose abortion have no problem with killing animals, but the argument is the same. Animals like to be alive, animals value their lives, they have complex social systems, capacity for emotion, learning, communication. Science discovers more about their inner lives almost daily. When you kill an animal, you are inflicting the greatest possible harm on that being. You are destroying its future. More than 80 billion land animals are slaughtered for food every year. That is 10 times the human population. It is the equivalent of killing every man, woman, and child in the United States every 30 hours. And we call this normal. And from a theistic perspective, God designed animals to be alive. God gave them the desire to live. Killing them without genuine necessity goes against his intent. But we need to eat. Of course, but you don't need to eat animals. Science shows that a non-meat diet can be equally nutritious, even more so, and billions of people have lived long, healthy lives without ever eating meat. If your principle is that killing is wrong unless there's extraordinary justification, then be consistent. Apply it everywhere. So the principle in all these cases is the same. Causing serious harm to a living being, and especially killing them, is immoral, unless there is extraordinary justification. In the case of elective abortion, personal choice is not extraordinary justification. And the same applies to the needless killing of animals. Same principle, same logic, but knowing the principle is not enough. We've known this for decades, and yet 73 million abortions per year. The numbers go up, not down. Because the root of this problem is the same as the root of all problems in today's sick world. It is a crisis of consciousness. Civilization today runs on unrestricted desire. Desire that is never satisfied, only stimulated more and more. More comfort, more pleasure, more convenience. And every additional demand places a burden on the lives of those around us, born and unborn, human and animal, until desire itself is confronted, not suppressed, not denied, but educated and redirected. Then no policy, no innovation, and no global summit will change the outcome. The ancient Vedic wisdom teaches that everything in this world is provided by the supreme controller. We have a right to take what we need, but not excessively. There is enough for everyone's need, but never enough for even one person's greed. The Bhagavad Gita explains that when the senses are indulged without restraint, the mind becomes agitated and true spiritual intelligence is destroyed. Abortion is a decision made from appetite. Appetite for a life of pleasure, convenience, and to hell with the consequences. The same appetite that drives us to consume animals for taste, to treat the natural world as a resource, to see children as burdens rather than blessings. The solution is not deprivation, it is voluntary restraint guided by wisdom. Sexuality understood as sacred, not recreational. This is Krishna consciousness, not a religion you join, a way of seeing reality clearly. A way of living where desire is educated, where intelligence is no longer a servant of appetite. If you believe that harming the innocent is wrong, then be consistent. Don't pick and choose which lives matter based on what's convenient for you. That's not morality. That's hypocrisy. If this challenged you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you want more content like this, and leave a comment. I want to know, where do you stand?